So, after Gene Roddenberry failed to get CBS to pick up the first Star Trek pilot, click here to watch the WTF of that episode, he then made this pilot that CBS decided was good enough to make a whole show out of. But then why did they decide to put this episode as the third episode of the series? Welcome to WTF Star Trek, the show where I get way too bothered about a show made in the 60s. Also, happy Pride Month to all of those out there in the Alphabet Mafia. To celebrate Pride, I'll be wearing this Pride-inspired Star Trek top for the rest of the WTF Star Trek episodes in June. Now, on with the episode. The episode starts with the Enterprise receiving a distress signal from a vessel called the USS Valiant that left Earth 200 years ago. Or in terms of our timeline, about 60 years from now. While waiting for confirmation of the signal, Kirk and Spock play a game of 3D chess. Kirk tells Spock he plays a very irritating game of chess, to which Spock responds, "Irritating? Ah yes, one of your Earth motions." Problem with this line is, Spock is smiling when he says it. I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen him smiling, link back to episode 1, but it's still really inconsistent for him regarding the rest of the series. However, having just beaten Spock, Kirk asks Spock if he's sure he doesn't know what irritation is. And Spock responds by mentioning that one of his human ancestors did marry a female. Ancestor? Spock, I think you mean your father.
Well, technically, his father is his ancestor.
I mean, yeah, you got a point, but he could have just said father. A helmsman notifies the captain of an object that is giving out the signal. Kirk requests that it's beamed aboard and makes his way towards the transporter room. Hold on. Is that? It is! It's Scotty! They discover that the object is essentially the black box for the USS Valiant and transport all of its information to the bridge. But on their way to the bridge, this random guy jumps into the turbolift. Who is this guy? We've never seen him before. Once they get to the bridge, the helmsman states that they are reaching the galaxy's edge. How are they at the galaxy's edge? At this point in history, Starfleet had barely explored the Alpha Quadrant. They wouldn't be at the galaxy's edge already. Gary, the man from the turbolift, informs the captain of the department head's arrival on the bridge before they left the galaxy. So in the newest season of Star Trek Discovery, once they're in the 30th century, they try leaving the galaxy, and it is made out to be such a big deal to leave the galaxy. They end up making it, of course. But in this, it's made out like it's no big deal. In the 23rd century. Are you sure about that? Hold on. If the department head's got called Where's McCoy? And who's this dickhead? They find out that the USS Valiant was forced to self-destruct after meeting a mysterious force. So to investigate this, Kirk decides they are going to leave the galaxy. Spock remarks that they're coming up to some kind of force field. Yeah, no shit, that's the Great Barrier. It's the reason no one ever leaves the fucking galaxy, dipshit. While travelling through the Great Barrier, the consoles on the bridge start to short-circuit and explode. As this happens, both Gary and Dr. Dana, the ship's new psychologist, are physically shocked by something unknown, which gives Gary some silver eyes. But the question is, why is it only these two are hit? Why not everyone else on the bridge? After being spat out the Great Barrier, the Enterprise loses its warp engines and is forced to travel at impulse. While waiting for the engines to be repaired, Kirk and Spock start looking into the records of the USS Valiant, and they find out that its captain was frantically trying to search for information on ESP. Spock claims that people with ESP can see through objects and spontaneously start fires. So apparently humans can have superpowers in Star Trek. While recovering in the medbay, Gary starts reading through multiple books at a massive rate, going so far as to read a page every second. Gary is apparently a genius. Pass it on. While having a conversation with Dr. Dana, Gary starts to change his health readings with his mind as a joke, going so far as to flatline. He even goes so far as to fill up a cup and bring it to him with his mind, so humans in Star Trek can now have telekinesis. 'Cause that makes sense. The Enterprise comes into orbit of the planet Delta Vega, so that a repair team can beam down and obtain a way to refill the engines. However, with Gary's power growing exponentially, Kirk decides to drug him and take him down to the surface. So Kirk is going to maroon a man he's known for 15 years. At least have the decency to fucking kill him. Captain on an away mission transporting a dangerous crewman? That's 4. While the repair team works on stripping parts from the surface for the ship, Gary wakes up in his cell. As he and Kirk have a heated discussion, Kirk recalls how Gary said earlier that they should kill a mutant like him. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Spock requests a phaser rifle be beamed down as a precaution in case he needs to kill Gary. Fucking hell, Spock really is coming in guns a-blazing. As this is happening, the repair crew works on a way to arm the base to blow up in case Gary escapes. Most of the repair crew beams back up to the Enterprise, but Kelso stays behind to man the detonation button. And while talking to Scotty over the comms, Gary uses his telekinesis to strangle Kelso to death with a loose wire. Gary is a murderer, confirmed. Gary attacks Kirk and Spock, lowers the force field, and escapes with Dr. Dana, who now has the same power as Gary. Kirk then decides to send everyone back to the ship while he chases after the couple. Logically, wouldn't it make more sense to just leave them and let them have the planet? It's uninhabited and abandoned. No one would have any reason to go there. Once Kirk catches up with Gary and Dr. Dana, a conflict ensues, in which Gary's power grows more and more. It all comes to a head when Gary says,
"I'm contemplating the death of an old friend. He deserves decent burial at least."
At which point, Gary creates a grave for Kirk with a headstone that reads James R. Kirk. James R. Kirk? His middle name is Tiberius. Is Gary really an old friend if he can't get Kirk's middle name right? Gary starts thinking of himself as a god, and when he does, he starts forcing Kirk to pray to him. Realizing that it's only a matter of time before he starts doing this to her, Dr. Dana starts shooting Gary with lightning, who then starts shooting lightning back. Somehow, Palpatine has returned. I hate myself for even making that joke. The lightning weakens Gary enough for Kirk to start beating the shit out of him. But Gary regains his full strength mid-fight, at which point Kirk lures Gary into the grave. And while Gary is in the grave, Kirk grabs his phaser rifle and shoots the boulder above the grave, which falls and crushes Gary, killing him in the process. Gary went out like 838 Captain Marvel. Is that still in spoiler territory? It's been over a month. It's fine. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and a comment to boost up the engagement, and don't forget to follow my socials linked below. I've been Callum, I'll see you in the next one. Live long and prosper.